Alright, what is good, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. So, like I said in the previous few videos, we are currently in post-game era for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And at this point in time, we've already discussed the game in depth as well as the content that they've given us during this era. So besides some of the other stuff that I have planned, the only thing that we have yet to talk about in any way, shape, or form is the DLC possibilities. Now, there is a lot of things that I want to discuss when it comes to the possibility of the DLC, because inevitably, we're going to get DLC. There's no way they wouldn't make DLC for our first open world Pokemon game. Why waste that kind of potential, you know what I mean? But before we get to anything of that sort, we do need to talk about the main discussion that's been going on when it comes to the DLC for Scarlet and Violet, and that is the Kalos region. Now, for anybody that's unaware, for a couple of months now, people have been discussing the possibility of the Kalos region being part of the DLC for Scarlet and Violet. Now, there's a lot of different theories as to why this could be possible, but there are two very huge reasons as to why people believe that it's so likely. The first reason is primarily because of the map. Looking at the map of the Paldea region, you can see that there's very clearly a space that's kind of like shaded out. And that's a very weirdly specific thing to do, since usually when things are shaded out in video games, logically, they should be unlockable once you get to that area. Since we currently don't have access to it, it's been currently chalked up to DLC, which is all fine and dandy, and in this context, it frankly makes a lot more sense. Having it placed in like this makes it carry itself more along the lines of like a teaser. Yeah, great, cool, awesome. Why do people think that it's Kalos? Well, simply put, that's because a lot of elements within Pokemon do mimic real life. In this situation specifically, Paldea is meant to mimic Spain. The neighboring country of Spain is France, and in the Pokemon universe, France is Kalos. So logically speaking, Paldea would be neighboring Kalos. And if that didn't really do it for you, another reason that people believe this is a possibility is because of the Pokemon that reside within Paldea. I didn't realize it at first, but a lot of the Pokemon that are in the Paldea region did originate from Kalos. Some we haven't seen since 6th Gen, actually. Outside of like spin-off games and stuff like that, I was not even thinking about Skiddo or Go-Goat before they reappeared in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So in turn, from a logical standpoint, it's not all that weird to have Pokemon from one region just waltz over to the next region and just make a home there. And so, with that being said, I'm pretty sure now all of us are pretty much on the same page. I saw that a very good couple of you guys were talking about DLC possibilities within the comments of my last couple of videos, and I saw a lot of Kalos related stuff. I was shocked. So now that we're all up to speed here, do I want Kalos as DLC for Scarlet and Violet? I don't know. I'm sure I've mentioned this on the channel a couple of times before, but I've been relatively vocal in saying that there are very few aspects of 6th Gen that I actually enjoyed, so having it as a DLC possibility is kind of weird. Now, this isn't me outwardly hating on the idea or anything like that, but there are a few aspects that kind of make it an odd situation for me, so I feel like we should talk about that. And yeah, you already know, I've already listed out my positives and negatives when it comes to the possibility of Kalos being DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, so why don't we go ahead and chit-chat about that. On the side of the positives, let's start with the fact that the possibility of visiting a previous region again, especially one that we haven't been to in over 10 years now, would be kinda neat. Anybody that's a Pokemon fan that grew up around 4th Gen has been wanting a second region to visit since we got Generation 2 remakes. I mean, hey, that could also go for the people that grew up on the original Generation 2, but I can't speak for y'all. The whole point is, being able to revisit a region in an entirely new game has always been exciting. So take that excitement and multiply it by like 4 when we're able to visit 2 regions in one game. I know for a fact that a lot of us as kids were dreaming of the exact same Pokemon game. Create your character, create your backstory, start in whatever region you want, and then create your own adventure by going to whatever region you would like to visit. A dream that I know that Pokemon will never let us live out themselves, which is why we have to rely on them to give us the small stuff, starting with being able to visit multiple regions in one game. And I gotta say, Kalos wouldn't be the worst thing to revisit. It does have a pretty nice aesthetic. Of course, it was an aesthetic that was horrifically crunched down by 3DS power, but you know what? That's all in the past now. Lumio City was the craziest thing we had ever gotten in a Pokemon game when we first transitioned over to 3D. The idea of being able to revisit that specific city on the big screen, reimagined damn near, that's pretty cool, I have to admit. Also, when it comes to the music, I gotta say, 6th Gen wasn't really bad with that. I really do like the music in 6th Gen, it's pretty underrated. Generally speaking, I'm just saying it would be nice to just see a more modern version of the region. Aside from that though, I guess it would be pretty nice to see what the old cast and crew is up to. If I'm remembering correctly, Looker's base of operations is residing within Kalos, isn't it? I think it would be a really neat lead-in if Looker needed somebody to help him with a mission, but for whatever reason, Callum and Serena weren't available, most likely dealing with champion duties, so he calls upon one of the champions of the neighboring region. So obviously, in turn, he'd be looking for you and Nimona. And then you guys get there, and he needs your guys' help taking down the remnants of Team Flare, or something along those lines. So obviously, I put damn near, like, no thought into that, but I feel like that's a very realistic situation for Pokemon to put us in, so honestly, I don't see why not. However, that gives them the best possible excuse to throw us right into the middle of Lumio City, and we could take on missions there from Looker or something like that. I think that would work out pretty nice. And then, in turn, while we're exploring, we could run into some familiar faces. Maybe Clement and Bonnie are doing some renovations for the gym or something like that. Hell, maybe there's like some kind of crowd around a coffee shop or something like that, and then you go inside and AZ is just chilling there with his Floette, sipping on a cup of joe. You get it? There's commotion because he's super tall. Anyway, I think it would be pretty nice to see some fun little cameos here and there. Nothing major, it doesn't need to be too extreme, but I think it would be really cute. And then there's my final positive, which I'm sure all of you are thinking the exact same thing, the potentially returning mechanic of Mega Evolution for the first time in forever. It's no secret that everybody and their mama has been wanting Mega Evolution back in these games for damn near a decade now. As our very first gimmick, and debatably one of the best, why the hell wouldn't we want it back? And so, going back to its home turf in Kalos, yeah, we would definitely expect Mega Evolution to make some kind of a return here. Now this could mean a couple of things in particular. For one thing, the potential of new Mega Evolutions for Paldea Pokemon, and the possibility of matching up Mega Evolution against Terrestrialization in battle. Although that last one could just be a me thing, I would just love to see how Mega Evolution stands up to literally any of the other gimmicks that we've gotten so far, but, you know, we don't have to have that one, I guess. So anyway, there you have all of my thoughts when it comes to the positives of revisiting Kalos in Generation 9. So yeah, pal, you guessed it. That coin, it's already been, I flipped it ages ago, actually, so we're going to be talking about the negatives of this possibility as well. Let's start with the fact that even if we were to go to the Kalos region, there's no way in hell that we would possibly get everything that we would want out of it. There's actually one huge explanation for that kind of sums it all up, but I'll get to that in a minute. But, like I said a moment ago, while it would be really nice to revisit some of these locales and just see the world revisioned in this new generation of Pokemon, in reality there's not really much else going on outside of that. I mentioned having little cameos that would be pretty neat, like Looker and AZ and stuff like that, but pretty much every other character in Kalos is so incredibly boring. The only other people that I would want to meet is obviously Calum and Serena. You know, the characters that you played as during your playthrough that are probably champions by now. There's no way in hell that they would let us talk to or battle them as champions. There's no way. Simply put, I just don't believe that they would even allow us to go nearly that far. And logically speaking, they have no reason to. Again, I'll get to it in a minute. Another situation I've thought about is the fact that if they were to give us Mega Evolution again and allow us to use it alongside Terrestrialization, I feel like a lot of balance could potentially be thrown out of whack. For one thing, if we wanted to do any battles in the overworld or anything like that, we could just use Mega Evolution as opposed to Terrestrialization because we don't have to recharge that. We could just do that every single battle. But if we're talking from a competitive standpoint, I couldn't even begin to get into that because I really don't know. Personally, the way I've come to understand it is Terrestrialization is just basically a step down from everything that Mega Evolution is. It's limited, so you have to recharge it after every battle. Instead of adding on another typing, it makes you a mono-typing. The only thing that it has over Mega Evolution is the fact that every single Pokemon can do it. So when thinking about it, throwing these two very polar opposite mechanics into the same game by themselves is kind of weird. I just feel like there has to be a lot of rebalancing done, and I'm not saying that it's not possible for them to do that, I'm just saying that it's very unlikely for them to do that. But hey, you know what, maybe I'm wrong about that. You guys tell me how you feel about that one. But with all that being said, we should probably talk about the biggest main issue here, and the biggest main issue is the fact that we're probably not even all that far away from 5th gen remakes. Just think about it with me for a second here. Yes, I know, we did just recently get 4th gen remakes, so it's very likely that we won't see 5th gen remakes for at least another 3 years. Maybe. You never know what Pokemon Company is cooking up over there. But then, going by that logic, it's pretty likely that we'll probably get 6th gen remakes within the next, like, 5 years or something like that. And yes, I know, 5 years is a little bit of a distance, but that's just a guess. Just take that with a grain of salt. That's not really the point here. Generally speaking, we're not all that far away from it, and if we're really not all that far away, why in the world would they bother souring our experience with a revisit to the Kalos region if we're going to be doing that again in a couple of years anyway? Sure, somebody could say this is their way of testing the waters and seeing how assets would work in a 3D environment like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but why in the world would they be testing assets for a game on a console that's probably not even going to be around that much longer? You know we've already had the Switch for 6 years now? There's no way in hell they're going to have the Switch around for another 5 to 6 years. But on the off chance that that is part of their plan, somebody needs to get socked in the mouth because that's an entirely different discussion. But anyway, back to the main point here. Testing assets on a game that's definitely going to be dead about like 1 to 2 years from now just to test out a couple of things and potentially sour our experience, that sounds like a waste of time. Something that Pokemon doesn't really like to do. So in turn, there's only really one way that I could see this happening. And that's specifically limiting how far we can go into the Kalos region. In reality, I could only probably see us getting access to about 1 or 2, maybe generously 3 cities if they really feel like it, with a lot of different events that we could participate in if we really feel like it. And naturally, of course, there would be some cameos of characters that we know that would be roaming around the Kalos region, but maybe they would be there solely to hint towards whatever's coming next, which is cool and fine and all, but it isn't really doing much for me personally. Now, you guys may not agree with me on this one at all, but personally, if they're not going to do the bare minimum of what they did with 2nd gen, I don't really care to have it. And while I could be wrong and there is a real possibility of us fully visiting the Kalos region again, I don't see how they possibly could have had enough time to insert all of that within the last, like, year or something. Getting down to the nitty-gritty here, I just don't see this working out one way or the other. Either we get something and it's super limited, or we get the full thing and it's kind of a waste of time because we're going to get the full thing in a couple of years anyway on probably a much better looking console, in which, what the hell was the point? So yeah, that's what I mean when I say I don't know if I really want Kalos as DLC. Overall, it just wouldn't really make all that much sense to me. I don't really see them doing a good enough job on bringing this region back, and the long-term effects of doing so could be pretty bad, or at the very least, very weird. So if I had to say yes or no to it, I think I'm good without it. At the very least, if they're gonna add something to this game, even if it's not amazing, I would prefer if they were to add something new as opposed to giving us something that we're gonna have anyway not all that long from now. But hey, that's just my personal take on it. What are you thinking over there? Would you like the Kalos region to return? Do you think that within this, like, year span, we could possibly have the greatest interpretation of the Kalos region that we've ever had? Or are you along the lines of me, in which we're most likely going to get something very limited, and it's not going to be all that great as DLC, and then we're going to get it in a couple years from now, and we'll have thought of this as a waste of time and money? Again, just me. But what are you guys thinking? Tell me everything you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always down there with you guys. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at that, because it's about time for me to go ahead and skedaddle. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this. And with that, I'm gonzo. Thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor, taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.